always great to get our practitioners on the stage. Wasn't that great from True Green and Rebecca? I thought it was just an amazing story. And we're going to continue that with a panel. I got a lot of great feedback from the panel yesterday. And I think what it was the fact that, again, you got to hear from people that are using the Phenom platform in really interesting ways. And we have three great companies and three great professionals to tell the story today. And we're talking about, you know, you can't grow what you don't know. Anybody here thinking about skills, thinking about internal mobility? I think so often we can spend so much time thinking about how we get people in the door that we forget to think about a leaky bucket on the other side. And so how do you actually connect the candidate experience and hiring all the way through to where that employee is inside knowing that you've got their back? And that's what we're going to talk about here for the next 30 minutes. So I'm going to have our panel introduce themselves. So Mandy, we're going to start with you. Mandy Day from Cigna.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I am the Vice President of Talent Acquisition at Cigna, and I'm thankful that they let me do that job every single day. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
My name is Glenn Goodman, and I'm actually the Chief Talent Officer for a company called ChenMed. And I know if I look across the room, most people have no idea who we are. And I think that's cool. I started with the company as a consultant through my business of Talent Matters. And we have a great hyper-growth story. I'd love everybody to look up and find out a little more about ChenMed after this session and the great things that we're doing to change healthcare and save lives.
Hi, my name is Michelle Kligman, and I'm the Senior Vice President of HR and the Chief Experience Officer. That's my official title, but on any given day, I'm the Chief Hope Officer, I'm the Chief Optimism Officer. I wear many, many hats.
Yeah, and I love all of those hats. If you have a chance to meet Michelle, you will find that's what she exudes, and she's passionate about that. In fact, I'll put a little feeler out. We're going to do a podcast in May on mental health. It's a big passion point for both Michelle and I and many people, I'm sure, in the room. So be looking for that as well. I think we're going to have a dynamic conversation.
Yeah, I think
so let's talk about skills. Let's talk about internal mobility. I'm going to start with you, Mandy. This idea of what was the challenge that Cigna had? And I thought the connection that you made on it was easier for people outside of Cigna to find a job than people inside of Cigna to find a job.
That's right.
Talk about that migration from that realization to having to find a solution.
Yeah, so I am a huge proponent of talent mobility. I think it's a free talent market. And what Cigna was challenged with was it was easier to go on LinkedIn as an employee to find a job for Cigna than using our own job board. So how do we fix that? And then comes our partnership with Phenom that helped us create a tool that created an ecosystem for us, not just for people to find their next jobs, but to actually grow within the company, build a network, build mentorships. And it's been an exceptional journey. And I think because of our relationship with Phenom and what we've built, we've retained employees that would have left for something different because they got frustrated with the tools, the archaic tools that we had, and trying to find their next opportunity. So people are staying at Cigna, not only because they're developing, finding new jobs, they're creating a network of people that will help them. They feel more of a community. And we did this all through COVID. So this was building relationships really virtually that wouldn't have existed without the Phenom platform.
That's awesome. And you know, healthcare obviously has its own challenges, of course. So talk a little bit about, maybe Glenn, start with you. Talk about some of the challenges you had with that internal piece and holding on to talent at ChenMed.
Well, I think for us at ChenMed, the biggest challenge was actually we didn't have any name brand recognition. When I first started, we actually didn't have any tools. And I know many of you in this room today are debating on getting tools. So we were very fortunate to be able to get Phenom as a partner, and they've been along with us the entire ride, but our challenges weren't as much about the retention because we didn't have any people. Like the reality was we had 1,500 people, we had 5 recruiters, and we needed to build a brand. And I'm actually honored to be on the stage with such established organizations that are so far ahead. But I come to an event like this, all these great smart people, and I think to myself, I thought we were really doing great things. And now I see like the stuff they showed up this morning in innovation. Oh, I want that. We need that. But to your question, though, Jess, we didn't have anything. We didn't have process. We didn't have the tools, the people. And what Phenom's allowed us to do is that ability to have that external brand, to actually have a database. We didn't even have a database. I didn't have a CRM. We had nothing. And so I even look now at the ability to look at our internal talent, we've grown to a company of 6,000 people. And if I look at the size of our database that didn't even exist, I'm really happy and proud of that. But as an organization, we've had to build and make choices over where we would put our resources. And the number one thing was the recruiting. And all along, even though we had access and had these wonderful Phenom tools, it's only now, almost 2 years later, that we've built the infrastructure to be able to now start leveraging the power of the tools, which is kind of exciting because I feel like we're ready and poised to do that next step and maybe learn from these two and others.
Yeah, and obviously healthcare staffing is not settled down. We're going to see a continued headwind there. We've been talking about that for a couple of days. Michelle, talk about, your institution is pretty interesting too because it's community-based, right? And it's connected to government and politics, so there's a lot of moving pieces there. But talk about the challenges that you had with internal retention, mobility, and state that case, and then we'll start to dig in just a little bit more.
Yeah, so really interesting. I mean, everybody knows that even before the pandemic, we had a lot of shortages in clinical staffing and nursing shortages. So the pandemic just exacerbated that issue for us. We did not pause on our growth strategy during the pandemic. We actually opened up 2 hospitals. And so we realized very quickly that we needed to have a multi-pronged strategy, and we needed to, get up on our feet pretty quickly to respond to the demand, knowing that there's a huge supply and demand issue in the market. So we partnered with Phenom, and we actually implemented Phenom during the pandemic. And we we completely redid our career site. We also did the CRM, and we did our internal mobility platform. And I have to say, I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to open up 2 hospitals, fully staffed, with no contingency and no agency. So that was a huge win for us. Another win for us, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
awesome.
you, thank you. That was a huge...
I was going to have to dig in there because what you just said in a very succinct sentence is really powerful in healthcare.
Yes.
And that internal mobility piece, would you say that was a critical part of being able to do that?
That was a critical part for us because even prior to the pandemic, we always were looking at growth and our pathways and making sure that our employees, in order to retain them, that they were able to really have a clear line of sight in terms of what that path looked like for them. For us, we had a goal of 50%, making sure that we could promote and grow internally, and 50% was our target. And because of the internal platform and the way that we were able to really navigate that, we met that goal during the pandemic. So we're really proud of that. Our team worked really, really hard. But those are some of the gains that we had during the pandemic, and we continue to see how do we expand our strategy and how do we really optimize and leverage Phenom and all of the capabilities that it has.
Let me pose a question. I think Michelle brings up a really interesting point. When we're doing all of that internal mobility and we're doing planning and workforce planning, so often traditionally we wanted to see things linearly. This job leads to this job, right? And it's all vertical planning. Today it feels like the new talent economy is real. We know that there is an empowered workforce that has very strong opinions about what they want to do, not what we want them to do. Right. It feels like right now we need to give people the ability to actually create a spider web, right, of network, of being able to connect with people as well as different jobs. Will you talk about if that's real for you and how you're using the Phenom tool and how you're thinking about that and the impact it's made with your people? It's going, I never knew that was an opportunity, but now it is. And Mandy, maybe I'll start with you.
So we all know about posting and praying, which we all still do in a way, right? But Phenom helps us be better at that, especially with our internal candidates. So when I think about creating an ecosystem internally, it's not just getting the next job, it's making the relationships to find the next job. It's tied to a learning system that helps you develop, right? So gone are the days of employees posting for a role that they will never get because they're just trying to fish and find anything. Phenom has helped us bring a tool to our company. Cigna's a Fortune 12 company. I feel privileged to work there. It's a great privilege, though, to help an internal employee grow their career. Phenom has helped us take away so many employees that are applying for roles that are misaligned for what they're looking for. So the AI behind it actually helps employees find roles that they would have never found before. It's giving them suggestions on jobs that they may not have all the skills for, but can definitely start the conversations to have to grow and develop those skills. And then on top of that, it's recommending jobs that are outside of their swim lane. So as a Fortune 12 company, we are constantly looking for what we're calling general management expertise, which means you're not continuing to grow up in your same silo. We love leaders that have a diversity of skills in their background, whether it was marketing or finance or claims. Our leaders have a diverse background in all of those. Phenom helps us make those connections, that spider web of, I may be in marketing today, but hey, I could really make an amazing recruiter or talent acquisition lead, right? So combining those skills keeps employees engaged, invigorated, and continuing to grow within the company and not continuing to look outside.
Great.
I would add that we're all dealing with the same thing. The employment marketplace has changed a lot, right? Even in the last few months, we've gone from this, there were not enough people, nobody was interested in working, and then we've gone to this, suddenly, you have not enough workers, and then you have too many workers, and then you've got reductions and layoffs, and our employees, our associates are really questioning what's next for me. What is the right thing for me and my family at this point in time? And I think Phenom does a great job of putting that platform together. I wish we were fully leveraged on it. I mean, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you guys we're doing all these great things yet, but that is our intent, is to continue to build on that because the employees are engaged with our career site. We stood that up. And thanks to Phenom, it's a great tool that did not exist. But we're dealing with the same thing everybody here in the room is dealing with. The workers have choices. You have to create career ladders for them. And it's not a ladder, it's a lattice, it's a web.
Yeah.
You can go in whatever direction you want. Many of you in the room have dealt with the same thing, your careers. Anybody here start saying, I want to be a talent acquisition or a talent professional, right? And you look at your next job and your next career, you did? All right. There's always one in the room.
Yeah.
There's always one, yes.
But the point is the tools that we have are around us to be able to support this business, growing businesses, and in an unknown market, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, that's the beauty. We have no idea what's going to happen. Our job is to provide tools and resources so that teams can continue to grow, that they can continue to add value to the organization, and we can grow their careers, which is theirs. And Phenom has just done such a good job for us creating that platform that didn't exist. But now I think we need to take it to that next level.
I think that's a really good point. It puts the employees in the driver's seat of their career.
That's right.
And so many times an employee is looking for their manager or a recruiter to tap them and say, am I right for this opportunity? Or why didn't you ask me if I was right? This Phenom, the system, tells them they're right? Gives them that tap, makes them feel empowered. And I think it's just really helped us internally continuing to grow our workforce.
And Michelle, I'm thinking about healthcare, and you have some really hard to place roles and a big gap, especially in that middle part of kind of the healthcare world in roles. Are you seeing that spiderweb or lattice can actually come together for you as well? And are you seeing people come out of industry, and are you bringing them into industry and then giving them that pathway as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And for us, we look at it very much like a web, and we don't call it placement, we call it casting, because we really believe that if you have the ability to be connected with our mission, and our mission is the ability to provide one quality, high standard of healthcare, regardless of your ability to pay or not. So if you can connect to our mission and you have the expertise, we're going to hire you, and we're going to make sure that we cast you in the right facility, in the right place, and we think that you can add value to our organization. So for us, it's been really key to have our recruiters actually have a better experience. And so I know we're always focused on the employee, and we're always focused on our customers, but for us, it was really key for us to focus on our recruiters and making sure that we take the pebbles out of the shoe for them and give them the absolutely best experience, have them work more efficiently, and be able to have a really clear understanding of where they can look at those passive candidates and how we can really optimize what we already have. So it all kind of comes together. It's not a one stop or one strategy or one tactic. It's really looking at the full complement of what Phenom has been able to do for us in this space that has really worked well.
Yeah. And Mandy, I'm thinking about Cigna, and you were talking about data earlier, right? Let people be in control of their own career, and that really is a data data piece, right? And I call it radical ownership, right? I need to be in charge of my own career plan. I'd like my organization to give me some pathways so that I actually have something I can follow. Talk about when you launched EX and you launched it internally, you had really strong adoption of people saying, I will radically own my own plan if you give me the path and go through the change management process.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the success you've had launching EX and how many people have jumped in on that platform or are now, every day or daily or as often as needed going in and directing their own careers.
Yeah, so it has, and I think any organization, the leaders have to believe in the tool first, right? And Phenom has done an exceptional job of bringing leadership along with them about the power of this tool, right? I've never worked with a vendor that was more accessible than Phenom, especially if an issue came up. Phenom was there to help and support. Effie's in the front row laughing, like she knows. I called Mahi, right? Like, hey, I need your help. And he was gracious and kind and helped us through that. So what we did before we launched was really start an internal campaign with the help of Phenom and we pushed out content, whether it was email or announcements. We have our homepage called Iris at Cigna and got people like the buzz going. I can take control of my destiny here if I want to. Since implementation, we're probably around 60% of our employees have actually put in a profile. And we say we can't find you if you don't put in a profile, right? So, and we want that profile to be as robust as it possibly can be. The more robust an employee's profile is, the easier they're gonna be matched with the AI of Phenom. So we've had really great success. We are working now on kind of the talent management piece, the broader piece of it, right? Going into the development phase of it, not just making the connections and the job connections, but how do we help you get there with the help of Phenom? So we're looking to be, 100% hopefully by end of year. I say that all the time. Everybody looks at me and I give a little wink, but I feel like it's a achievable goal. And the more success stories we're able to tell as an organization, right? And the more success stories our hiring managers are telling about how they found their candidates through Phenom, I think the more people will continue to put in their.
Well, it feels almost like an engagement metric, right? Absolutely. As you start to see people going in and their activity there shows that they're actually willing to give that discretionary effort to your organization and see their future there. Yeah. Well, that is amazing to think about. Let's talk about buy-in from a leadership standpoint. You actually told a funny story about your CEO, Glenn, and his passion around his passion around making sure people have a path. Will you tell that story real quick? Because getting executive buy-in at the C level is really important too.
I mean, so you have to get buy-in from the organization because let's face it, you're going to invest resources, time and money that can be taken away from other parts of the organization. So it's our jobs to make sure that there's an understanding of the why. And I work for an organization that's big into the why. Why are we doing it? And we are an organization that is very mission and vision driven. And our CEO, literally, he proved it. He's excited about it. We had involvement of the entire C-suite. But the thing that I was not expecting is my very first week in the role, he shows up at orientation every single week, no matter what. We were starting, during COVID, we were hiring, for us it's a lot. There was 100 people showing up every week. That was a lot of people. The CEO would show up, and he started. Like the first thing he says, I have one job for all of you in the room. I need you to get promoted. And I'm sitting there going, did he just say that? I don't have enough jobs for all these people, and I need them to stay in their current job for a little bit.
Yeah.
But the funny part was that was that natural way that we were, as an organization, trying to develop, and this was the talent. And so he was doing absolutely the right thing. And then I thought to myself, and this is a couple years ago, we have no way to track any of that. So I hope I can figure that out before the next orientation. But he constantly challenges, the entire executive team constantly challenges, does this make sense? What are we doing? Internal mobility has become so critical and important for all of us, right? And at the end of the day, if we don't do a better job to make sure people know things. I also look, internal mobility for us, and one of the main things that we did with Phenom was tied to our referral program, right? Where people, the most successful hires come from where? Referrals. I know recruiters think it's them, but it's really referrals. Now, the referrals that are going to come into the organization through Phenom, we built this platform, and it's actually helping them stay engaged because we know if people are there that you like to work with, you're likely to stay as well. And that internal mobility is kind of feeding itself. And then now what we're finding is we're getting more and more people through internal mobility, more and more people through referrals. And the CEO's like, wow, the numbers are great. Like, how are you finding people? We are very proud. We did not have any significant challenges in finding talent or having applications during these really tough times. Now, of course, we had hard times where all the healthcare hires. If anybody knows any doctors, I need some. No, we'll take it. No, the reality is we're all dealing with the same problems, but I'm proud that in that time, we were able to go through hypergrowth. We went from 1,500 to 6,000 employees. Wow. Yes, we're still short. Yes, we're still dealing with issues. But that internal mobility and the Phenom tools allowed us the ability to do that. Yeah. And it's the executives. Every one of them. I did a roadshow for every single one of them. We understood what was in it for them. I had a CIO that looked at me and said, this is too much money, no. Exact thing. And I basically had to pull back with my team. I got an amazing team and came back and we did a special description for him, special session, brought in some of the Phenom people and said, now make it personal to him. You want to hire tech talent in South Florida and build this huge machine, you can't do it without a Phenom, and let's make it personal. And now he's a total believer, and he's like, I don't know what we did without this.
Yeah.
That's so,
well, yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
No, I was just going to say that's so interesting because for us it was actually the opposite. We had great executive and leadership buy-in, but we didn't have buy-in from our team. Our team was like, yeah, okay, right. Next flavor of the month, how is this going to make us more efficient, more effective, and just easier? And I have to say, piggybacking what Mandy said earlier about the accessibility of the Phenom team and being able to really partner with us to leverage that buy-in and putting data in front of them and the analytics in front of them to be able to really tell our story and tell our journey once we were really looking for full adoption. So I think that has been a great part of the story and something that we didn't anticipate, but something, I'm looking at Anna Fabier, our Associate Vice President of Talent Acquisition, something that we didn't anticipate, but something that actually was a really great partnership that Phenom really helped us with.
Love that.
How long did that take? Just curious, like that adoption, that ability to get everybody on board.
Probably about seven months. I have to say that we had, and if Brian Kelly is in the room, I don't know where he is, we probably had the fastest implementation in the history of Phenom. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mahi. In terms of our career site, we were able to do, I think we implemented, he's probably going to kill me for saying this out loud because everybody's going to want this fast.
We'll beep it out.
We'll beep it out. I think it took us probably 3 months.
That's awesome.
To implement. And our adoption was probably around 7 to 8 months.
Yeah. Well, and I think speed and accuracy, right?
Yeah.
Those two things combined is really important, especially with the implementation. And I really love the idea of participation leads to commitment, right? So getting your team involved and really starting to help them understand how it was going to change and increase the joy of their own work, I think is part of that. I really like that. I don't know if everybody caught Stephen Kramer, the CEO of Bright Horizons, talking just a little earlier, but here's a CEO who realized that it was workforce planning, it was hiring, those are the things that were critical, but he actually turned to the crowd and said, HR's time is now. Maybe a few years ago it was finance, but it's now. I feel that kind of that's almost like an unsaid energy with you three up here. I feel that, like, those are the conversations you're having. They're really meaningful. It's not like, well, it's kind of neat to do this, to say that we're doing workforce planning and giving people skills. It's real. Like, these are real C-suite level. This is our time. Can you speak to that a little bit? I think as senior leaders in your organization, having people hear a little bit about the importance of what that means, like when it's really on the line and we're actually the ones stepping up to bring the answer. Maybe I'll start with you because you've done a lot of that work in a very complex system.
Absolutely, and I think one of our CEOs, newly promoted CEOs, said, who would have thought that HR would have been such an important strategic differentiator that impacts the bottom line?
Mandy did.
Right? Because we were looking at our overtime and labor expense, I think, on a bi-weekly basis, whereas before we'd probably pre-pandemic, we were probably looking at it on a quarterly basis, making sure that we hired the right talent and making sure that, everybody saw the turnover spike, but how can we really turn that around and retain talent in a significant way? So I think that we've proven that our worth, not only in terms of, engagement, but in terms of how we impact the bottom line and how we could really push our growth strategy forward. I mentioned earlier that we were able to open up 2 hospitals during the pandemic. We opened up Lynn Rehabilitation Center, a hospital that, in conjunction with the University of Miami and the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis, which treats spinal cord injury and traumatic brain injury. And we acquired 27 acres on the west side of Miami-Dade County and opened up a brand new hospital there. So we wouldn't have been able to do that, and certainly not through a pandemic, if we didn't have the right talent strategy and the right people strategy on retention and employee engagement.
Yeah, great.
I think it's also about sometimes you just have to do it, and you can influence by your getting results and taking action, right? So that seat at the table, which I love the quote this morning, like, I don't understand the table, like, that's not where stuff happens. But that relationship is shown through your actions and results. We had one particular top executive who basically said, no, I'm not interested, that's nice, but we don't need that because it doesn't help us. And I could have fought it, or I could have just left it alone. I think it was 2 weeks before we went live. He heard everything that was going on. He saw it. He goes, well, when are we going? And I said, you told me no. And the answer really was, well, I'd like it to happen. Now, by the way, I had no choice. And so we delayed things like another week to be able to make sure we roll. And it was hard to get it out there, but it was the action and results that we had very, very quickly that gave us that seat at the table.
Yeah.
Like, it gave us that conversation. And now we continue to have to make sure we know this is what we're getting, these are results, this is what we're trying to do next. Like, I leave this session and saw that innovation, and I can't wait to go back and go, wow, all this really amazing stuff is going to help catapult us next. And we've got the platform, and I need some attention, and I need a little additional resources because we've gotten the results. So we have that partnership with all the leaders because we've shown them. And by the way, now we have data and information. It's not just HR speak when just going, oh, here's our policy, here's our process, and I think that this is what this is.
Right.
We now have data. It's an amazing.
Yeah. And that's been and Mandy, I want you to respond as well, but that's been a consistent pattern, I think, in the executive track as well as on the main stage, is the precise, accurate data and the clear, clean data that you're getting from the Phenom platform, which I'm particularly proud of as a user for 7 or 8 years. To see the evolution of that platform is pretty amazing. So I love the fact that you stated that again, because that's been a constant. And as a CHRO, I need to have good content that I can bring to board level and know I can trust it, and it can be real time. Mandy, one more thought about kind of the executive kind of buy-in and the sense of we really matter right now?
Yeah, so our CEO starts any meeting he has with talent as our number one thing we have at our company, and it's our number one differentiator. So I feel amazing to have this job that I can help drive that with my team. So tremendous buy-in. I think the problem is Phenom is so good and it's taken us so far. The question now is, well, what's next, right? As the world is evolving and changing, it's an amazing challenge, and I'm glad from some of the things I saw today that Phenom's going to hold our hands through that. It's awe-inspiring, the tools that you guys have. I wish I had the AI you have today. I would have put it all in at the same time. We're excited to do that, right? Because I think we are on the horizon of you're not going to be able to continue on the path that you're on without implementing new things. And what I saw from Phenom today, I mean, I hope I get kind of a first-in-line spot behind everybody else here that's looking at the tool, right? Because it's amazing, you need it, it's a differentiator, and it has to be done to continue on your journey.
I'd love you bringing that up, because I asked you earlier, if you knew then what you know now, would you have done the talent and the EX and the talent front end, the candidate experience at the same time? You're like, absolutely. And I was ringing that bell after I realized what it could do. And it's possible to do it, and you can do it. And I think where we're going from a product is going to allow that to happen. So I want to make sure that as we break and we're done, thank you so much for your time, that you that you pull these people in the hall, talk to them, and understand kind of what they're doing. What I've found is it's a strong executive team of strategic thinkers that are problem solving and thinking around the corner to what's going to be tomorrow as much as what the questions we're answering today. So I really appreciate your time and energy. But again, you couldn't be here unless you could bring real experience to the chairs. And that's really meaningful to me. So thank you for keeping people first. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much.